Imagine, if you will, the smell of ozone burning the inside of your nostrils, a sound so high-pitched it doesn't just ring in your ears but vibrates in your very teeth, and a color that defies the natural spectrum. A green so sickly and luminescent it looks like radioactive moss clinging to the air itself. We are standing on the precipice of the unknown, staring at the gray steel waters of the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The date is October 28, 1943. The world is at war. The Atlantic Ocean has become a graveyard, a hunting ground where German U-boat wolf packs tear through Allied convoys with ruthless efficiency. The United States Navy is desperate. They need an edge. They need a miracle. And on this chilly autumn day, they are about to gamble with the fundamental laws of physics to get it. To understand the magnitude of what is about to happen, we have to look away from the water and into the smoky back rooms of the Office of Naval Research. The concept was theoretically sound, born from the minds of the century's greatest intellects. It was whispered that Albert Einstein himself had laid the groundwork with his unified field theory, a way to mathematically link gravity and electromagnetism. The objective was not science fiction, it was tactical survival. They called it electronic camouflage. The goal was to render a destroyer-class vessel invisible, not to the naked eye initially, but to the deadly magnetic mines and radar systems that were decimating the fleet. But as the generators began to hum aboard the USS Eldridge, a Cannon-class destroyer escort designated DE-173, the objective shifted. The ambition grew. What if you could bend light? What if you could wrap a ship in an electromagnetic bottle so tight that reality itself would slide right off it? The ship sat in the harbor, brand new, a hulking mass of steel and secrets. On her deck were sailors who thought they were just running drills, young men from Iowa, Brooklyn, and Texas, oblivious to the fact that they were nothing more than guinea pigs in a cosmic cage match. Below deck, however, the configuration was wrong, strange. There were massive generators where cargo should be, coils of copper wire thick as a man's arm winding through the bulkheads, and radio equipment that hummed with a frequency that made the hair on your arms stand up. The switch was thrown. At first, it was just a hum, a low, thrumming vibration that rattled the coffee in the mess hall cups. Then came the air. The air around the Eldridge began to darken. It wasn't a shadow, it was a distortion, like heat shimmering off a mesmerizing stretch of asphalt in the Nevada desert. But it was cold. Witnesses on the nearby SS Andrew Furuseth, a merchant marine ship, watched in stunned silence. Among them was a man named Carlos Allende, a figure who would later become the architect of this modern myth. He watched as the shimmer turned into a fog. A green, glowing, impenetrable mist began to swirl around the hull of the Eldridge. It wasn't drifting in from the sea, it was emanating from the ship itself, bursting outward like steam from a cracked boiler. And then the impossible happened. The ship didn't just fade, it didn't just camouflage, it vanished, gone. The water where the displacement of a 1,200-ton vessel should have been was flat. The indentation in the ocean remained for a split second, a hollow footprint in the water, before crashing waves filled the void. The USS Eldridge had seemingly ceased to exist in the Philadelphia harbor. But this is where the story takes a turn from military tactical experiment to a horror story of quantum proportions. Hundreds of miles away, in the Norfolk Naval Base in Virginia, shore watchers reported something that defied logic. For a few terrifying minutes, the USS Eldridge appeared in the harbor at Norfolk. It wasn't sailing, it wasn't docking, it just was there, teleported in the blink of an eye.
Then, just as quickly, the phantom ship vanished from Virginia, snapped back by the elastic band of space-time, and rematerialized in the green fog of Philadelphia. The generators were powered down, the green mist dissipated, clinging sluggishly to the water before fading away. The ship was back. The brass on the observation deck likely cheered. The experiment, on paper, was a success. They had achieved invisibility. They had achieved teleportation. But as the support boats raced toward the Eldridge to congratulate the crew, the silence from the Eldridge was deafening. There was no movement on deck, no all-clear signal, just the creaking of metal and the smell of burning electricity and something akin to roasting meat. When the boarding party climbed onto the Eldridge, they walked into a scene that would haunt the darkest corners of classified files for decades. The crew was not okay. Some men were standing on the deck staring blankly at the sky, drool running down their chins, their minds completely wiped clean, reduced to the cognitive function of infants. Others were violently ill, vomiting a bile that looked like it didn't belong to human biology. But the true horror, the detail that turns the Philadelphia experiment from a tall tale into a nightmare, was found in the bulkheads. Physics had failed, or rather, physics had been broken and put back together wrong. During the rematerialization, the molecular structure of the ship and the molecular structure of the sailors had occupied the same space at the same time. Men were fused into the steel of the ship. Hands protruded from solid metal walls. Torsos and heads were emerging from the deck floor, their faces frozen in a scream of eternal agony, their lungs filled not with air, but with iron and steel. 2 sailors were found buried upright in the compass deck, merged with the navigation equipment, their life forces entangled with the ship's magnetic compass. It was a tableau of the grotesque. The human cost of bending reality was absolute. The survivors were quickly rounded up, quarantined, and subjected to intense therapy, a euphemism for brainwashing and intimidation. The Navy had touched the face of God, and God had slapped them back. The order came down immediately. This never happened. The logs were scrubbed, the ship was cleaned, and the USS Eldridge was quietly rebranded, eventually sold off to Greece, its haunted steel carrying the secrets of 1943 to a scrapyard decades later. The years following 1943 were defined by a deafening silence. The war ended, the confetti fell in Times Square, the world moved on to the Cold War, the atomic age, and the space race. But beneath the veneer of American progress, the ghost of the Philadelphia experiment festered like an infected wound. The story should have died in that shipyard. It should have been buried with the men who were allegedly fused to the bulkheads. But secrets of this magnitude have a way of leaking out, dripping slowly into the public consciousness through the cracks of madness and obsession. The leak began with a package. In the mid-1950s, a man named Morris K. Jessup, a researcher and astronomer who had written a book titled The Case for the UFO, received a series of bizarre letters. They were written in varying colors of ink, with erratic capitalization and a frantic, desperate tone. The author signed his name as Carlos Allende, sometimes Carl Allen. He claimed to be a witness. He claimed to be on the SS Andrew Furuseth that day in Philadelphia. He detailed the unified field theory, the green fog, and the horrific freezing of the sailors. He spoke of men who, years after the experiment, would simply go invisible while sitting at a bar or eating dinner with their families. He called it getting stuck in the molasses, a terrifying state where a man would fade from our reality unless his fellow sailors laid hands on him to anchor him back to this dimension.
Jessup was disturbed. He was a man of science, but the details were too specific. The physics described too consistent with the theoretical work of the time. The rabbit hole deepened when the Office of Naval Research, ONR, contacted Jessup. They had received a copy of his book in the mail, anonymously. But it wasn't just his book. The margins were filled with scribbled notes, a conversation between three distinct entities, Mr. A, Mr. B, and Jemmy. These notes discussed the text as if the writers possessed ancient, superior knowledge of physics, alien technology, and the Philadelphia experiment. The ONR was rattled. They reprinted this annotated version in a limited run known as the Varro edition. Why would the U.S. Navy take the ramblings of a madman so seriously, unless there was a grain of terrifying truth buried within the ink? As Jessup dug deeper, his life began to unravel. He spoke of being watched, strange phone calls in the middle of the night, men in dark suits shadowing his movements. The pressure was immense. The Allende letters had opened a door that Jessup couldn't close. He was looking for proof of a technology that could render nuclear weapons obsolete, a technology that the government would kill to keep hidden. And perhaps they did. In 1959, Morris K. Jessup was found dead in his car in Florida. A hose had been connected from the exhaust pipe to the window. The engine was running. The official ruling was suicide. But for those who walked the shadowy path of this conspiracy, it was a silencing. Jessup had gotten too close to the event horizon. The story didn't die with Jessup. It mutated. It connected with other dark legends of the 20th century. It drew lines to the Montauk Project in the 1980s, alleging that the Philadelphia experiment hadn't just teleported a ship, but had torn a hole in the fabric of time itself, creating a tunnel between 1943 and 1983. This brings us to the second, darker chapter of the legend. Fade in from the gray waters of 1943 to the windswept cliffs of Long Island, New York. The year is now 1983. We are standing at the edge of the world, looking up at a massive, rusting behemoth of steel, the SAGE radar dish at Camp Hero. It sits abandoned, a relic of the Cold War, turning slowly in the wind like a giant, unblinking eye. But locals will tell you that even when the base was officially shuttered, even when the power was cut, the radar dish kept turning. And deep beneath the soil, in a labyrinth of concrete bunkers that don't appear on any blueprint, the hum of the Philadelphia experiment was born again. This is the Phoenix Project, better known as the Montauk Project. If the Philadelphia experiment was about bending light, Montauk was about bending the human mind and the flow of time itself. The narrative tells us that the scientific data from the USS Eldridge disaster wasn't destroyed, it was studied. The brilliant mathematician John von Neumann, who allegedly oversaw the original experiment, supposedly realized that the failure in 1943 wasn't the machinery, it was the biological interface. The sailors couldn't handle the shift in reality because they lacked a psychic anchor, so the military-industrial complex decided to build one. Deep inside the subterranean levels of Camp Hero, they built the chair. This wasn't just a piece of furniture, it was a throne of coils, sensors, and amplifiers derived from alien technology allegedly recovered from crash sites in the desert Southwest. The goal was terrifyingly simple. Hook a psychic human being into the chair, amplify their thoughts with massive amounts of radio frequency energy, and manifest those thoughts into reality. Imagine a young man, a psychic pilot, strapped into this device. He concentrates on a pencil appearing on the table across the room. The generators scream, the lights flicker, and suddenly, out of thin air, a pencil materializes, solid, real. But the ambition didn't stop at pencils. They wanted to manifest portals. They wanted to create a tunnel through time. The most chilling aspect of the Montauk legend is the Montauk Boys. Thousands of runaways, orphans, and vulnerable youths were allegedly abducted off the streets of America. They were subjected to trauma-based mind control, broken down until their personalities fractured, and then reprogrammed to be sleeper agents or test subjects for the time travel experiments. These weren't soldiers, they were children, fed into the machine to see if their young minds could survive the temporal rift that had melted the sailors of the Eldridge. August 12,
1983. The date is crucial. According to the researchers of this timeline, the Earth possesses a natural biorhythm, a magnetic peak that occurs every 20 years, 1943, 1963, 1983. On this specific day, the scientists at Montauk ramped the power up to levels never before seen. The psychic in the chair, a man named Duncan Cameron, was pushed to his breaking point, and then the walls of reality shattered. A stable vortex opened in the underground chamber, a swirling tunnel of light and noise. But this wasn't just a tunnel to anywhere, it was a direct line to the past. The scientists watched in horror as the tunnel locked on a specific coordinate in space-time, the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, October 28, 1943, the USS Eldridge. The two experiments, separated by 40 years, were locked into a feedback loop. The massive energy surge that had made the ship invisible in 43 was actually being sucked out of 1983. The ship was trapped in a hyperspace bubble created by the future. The sailors who jumped off the deck of the Eldridge in 1943 didn't land in the water. They fell through this tunnel and landed on the grass at Montauk in 1983. They had skipped 40 years in a heartbeat. But the energy was too chaotic. The psychic in the chair, Duncan Cameron, realized the evil of what they were doing. He saw the broken children, the twisted physics, the arrogance of the commanders. In a final act of rebellion, he unleashed a thought form from his subconscious, a massive, hairy, demonic beast, physically manifested from the nightmares of the psychic. It tore through steel doors, crushed equipment, and hunted the scientists through the hallways. Panic erupted. The base commander ordered the generators destroyed to cut the power to the chair and banish the creature. They took axes to the conduits, severing the heavy cables. The lights died. The hum stopped. The beast faded into mist, dissolving back into the psychic ether. The time tunnel collapsed, snapping the link between 1943 and 1983. The USS Eldridge was released from the loop, returning to its own time to materialize with its dead and fused crew. Camp Hero was evacuated. The lower levels were flooded and filled with cement to bury the secrets forever. The memory of the staff was wiped, using the very technology they had developed. They were released back into the world, living normal lives, plagued only by nightmares of a turning radar dish and the smell of ozone. The U.S. Navy, for its part, has maintained a rigid, unyielding denial. They released the logs of the USS Eldridge, which seemingly placed the ship in the Bahamas during the alleged time of the experiment. They cite the credible witnesses. They point to the Philadelphia experiment as a misunderstanding of degaussing, a standard procedure to reduce a ship's magnetic field to hide from mines. But skeptics ask, does degaussing cause men to merge with steel? Does degaussing create a green luminescent fog? Does degaussing drive a crew to insanity? The official narrative is clean, sterile, and boring. The legend is messy, violent, and terrifyingly plausible in a world where the government detonated atomic bombs just to see what would happen. We are left decades later, standing at the edge of that same water in Philadelphia or walking the hiking trails of Montauk Point. The shipyard is different now. The Eldridge is long gone, turned to scrap metal and razor blades. The men involved are all dead, but the question remains, hanging in the air like that smell of burning ozone. Did we do it? Did the U.S. Navy, in a moment of wartime desperation, accidentally unlock the source code of the universe? The Philadelphia experiment serves as a modern Prometheus myth. It is a warning. We live in an age where we split atoms, splice genes, and build artificial intelligence that mimics the human soul. We are constantly pushing the buttons of the machine without reading the manual. The story of the USS Eldridge suggests that there are boundaries we are not meant to cross, that reality is not a solid floor, but a thin sheet of ice over a dark, infinite ocean. And if you press too hard, if you pump enough energy into the void, the ice cracks, the green fog rises, and we learn, perhaps too late, that some doors, once opened, can never be truly shut. The ship may have returned to the harbor, but a part of our certainty about the world we live in vanished that day, lost forever in the green mist of 1943.